Hi, this is Asim.
This is Sujoy.
This is Amrita.
And you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast about the three main Khans of the Hindi film industry.
Amir,
Salman,
and Shara.
Hi, you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast regular feed. Thank you so much for your support over the years. We now have a Patreon channel with bonus content and exclusive merch for those of you who would like to support us. Every dollar goes towards creating more and better content. Visit us at patreon.com/Khandaan podcast.
Hi and welcome to a new episode of Khandaan Podcast. My name is Asim Bernie and I'm joined by my lovely co-host Amrita and Sujoy. Hey Amrita, hey Sujoy.
Hello. Hello.
And we also have an amazing guest with us, Pankaj Sachdeva. Hi Pankaj.
Hi Asim.
Is it Pankaj Sachdeva or Sachdeva? You know my impossible to pronounce names correctly.
No, it's Sachdeva. Pankaj Sachdeva.
Oh, Sachdeva. Okay, Pankaj Sachdeva. Sorry about that. Like I said, I've been reading a lot of your writing already, and I'm so happy to have you on the podcast too. And we picked the perfect movie for you, clearly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, firstly, thank you for all three of you for inviting me. I've been listening to this podcast for quite a while. Especially, I remember the episodes where Sal had come in on Devdas and all. It's still one of my favorite ones because I learned so much from it. But yeah, thank you for inviting me. And I'm surprised we chose Gupt.
Well, so as I was saying, so we have, if you're a patron, you can sign up to a tier where you can choose a movie that Khandaan will be reviewing. So this movie was selected by Nim, and I think she took a lot of pleasure. Nim, our friend, she's been on the podcast a few times as a guest. She was on there at the Maulajat one. So I think there was like a certain pleasure in picking out Gupt, but then also Gupt it's also like 25 years of Gupt, so there was like a little celebration going on, and there was like a bit of news going on, right, Sujoy? You had a little video that you sent us?
Yeah. So all the cast members, gathered together, I think somewhere in Mumbai, and like Bobby Deol and Kajol.
Minus Manisha Koirala, I'd just like to point out.
No, I think it was rescheduled, and Manisha couldn't appear for the rescheduled one for some reason. No, spill the tea. Why do you think? What's your theory? Why Manisha didn't show up?
Well, I'm just stirring shit for no reason. No, but I also think like this movie is like very classic, like two Nepo babies, like together. Like you can see there's a level of comfort between Bobby and Kajol that is not anywhere near what either of them are doing with Manisha.
So, I mean, Sheetal IRL, Manisha, she gets sidecast even before the camera started rolling.
Also, we'll get into this later, but I have so many thoughts, you guys. Like this was a real nostalgia trip.
Yeah. So I'm going to play a little clip from Nim on why she picked the movie.
So to me, Gupt was one of the first Bobby Deol movies where I felt it actually had a good story to it. The women in my mind were the main characters, though, and Bobby was clearly in a secondary lead. I loved that Kajol took on such a role early on in her career and was willing to explore a character that was definitely a darker shade of gray. Manisha was more of the typical heroine, but she looked fantastic on screen and played a solid part, too, in the movie. The music, I will say, has been a fave of mine forever. I still have the original cassette from then and used to replay the songs on repeat all the time. Currently, Mere Khwabon Mein Hai Tum and Ye Duniya Hasino Ka Mela are still jams that I can listen to all the time. Overall, for a movie from the 90s, especially 1997, this had all the masala that was needed to keep a young Nimrit engaged. Bobby looked cute, and the whodunit aspect was solid. So I hope you guys had fun revisiting it, and I look forward to hearing your conversation on it.
let's go into Gupt. I'll try to read. So this movie came out in '97. It stars Bobby Deol, Manisha Koirala, Kajol, and Rajiv Rai. Directed it for his banner, Trimurti Pictures, right? That was the big thing, yeah.
And before we go any further, I told this to Asim, and I'm going to say it again. I will hear no Rajiv Rai slander. The man directed Tridev, Vishwatma, and Mohra in a row. Like, he gets a pass from me. Like, we will not listen to. Although, if you do want to say something about him, we can talk about, the fact that he very creepily married Sonam when she was just 19 years old or whatever. We can talk about that. But as a director, I will hear no slander. The
end. Wasn't there on Twitter which director had the best 3-movie streak or something going on?
Yeah,
and that's a pretty good 3-movie streak, I have to say, right? But yeah, just as a summary for people that have not seen or heard of Gupt, so it's apparently now Gupt: The Hidden Truth, which I never knew that was a subtitle. I just knew it as Gupt. So Governor Jai Singh Sinha is murdered, and the needle of suspicion points towards his estranged son Sahil Sinha, who must prove his innocence. This is from IMDb. So Pankaj, man, had you seen Gupt before? Is this your first watch, or where do you stand on Gupt?
Okay, so I think everybody has seen Gupt before.
Yeah, what kind of question is that? Have you seen Gupt before?
So I'm sure, when it came out and we all know who the killer is. So it was such a huge trend when it had come out. So I'd seen it then. I was pretty young, it's 25 years. So I was 7 or 8 when it had come out. So I enjoyed it and it was so much fun. But, for the podcast, I watched it again. And, that there's this curse of adulthood. I started seeing some of the flaws. Yeah. Because, you've been watching some of these films for so long that you understand, okay, what doesn't work, what works well. But still, I was just amazed by how stylish the film is. And it still holds up. And there were no, some of the films have become dated and some of the films have, some of the very cringeworthy scenes. I just couldn't find anything here that was, that bothered me now. It's still a lot of fun. There's so much style. The songs are absolutely gorgeous. And I enjoyed it again. So it was a lot of fun for me, even this second watch, even though we all know what happens in the end. But yes, there were some things I felt okay, I'm seeing the character development is too rushed and all those things, but still it's fine, but a lot of fun. So how about you guys?
I also have to say, we shouldn't underestimate, we have a lot of people that came into Bollywood much later than we did, or people that do not have access to the same movie. So there's a lot of people that have not seen Gupt or not heard of this movie. So I think we should keep the spoiler towards the end, though. We shouldn't get into it straight away. Okay. But Sujoy, where do you stand on Gupt?
So this movie is of an era. It came out in 97 and it shows, right? And especially our movie watching habits have changed now. And this is a movie that needs to be watched with the right kind of audience to appreciate the beauty that it is, and rewatching it solo for a podcast episode, trying to dissect and understand the flaws and the things that work for it, etc., kind of marred my first impressions that I had and the nostalgia that I had of Gupt. And my viewing for Gupt for the podcast kind of made me feel like this hasn't aged well at all. And we'll get into more of it, but it shows that age, that it's a very 90s movie because it's trying to do everything everywhere all at once. It's got so many characters being introduced at the rate of 88 miles per hour in the first 20 minutes. And then even in the second hour, Puri shows up from somehow. Yeah. So it's a very much a product of its time. And if you enjoy those kind of movies, and also if you have the right kind of friends group watching this would be a watch along kind of a movie. I don't think Gupt can be really enjoyed as a solo movie. If you're watching on a Sunday matinee, being hungover and Gupt comes on TV, I don't think you will necessarily enjoy this. The soundtrack, on the other hand, is still a killer.
No, somebody else is the killer, Sujoy.
No, I did tweet that. Dash is not the killer. The soundtrack is.
Amrita, where do you stand on Gupt?
So there's a lot of nostalgia with this particular film. This movie came out when I was in school, and I just remember, like everybody was shocked at the revelation of the killer, and it was almost like a game. Like everyone was trying to spoil the movie for the people who hadn't seen it opening weekend. Like it was like this whole thing, but it was like event movie. It was an event movie during a time when people anyway went to the theaters,
Yeah.
and it was a very Rajiv Rai production in that the sets were bigger than big, and you had all these stars, and it was supposed to be very sexy and very young, and the music was amazing, etc. And I remember, like, Gupt is not a movie that I think about very often, but I remember so much of it. But also, like, I misremembered some things, like that big climax song. I always thought that was a party. But then I realized I think of it as being a party because that's what happened with Tridev and Vishwatma and Mohra as well. Like his climax songs are always like a giant set piece party song. But this was actually a stage show, which sort of like took me aback. But like Pankaj was saying, the songs still hold up. It's still pretty slick looking. It doesn't look dated as much as a movie made in 1997 ought to look. And also, Kajol is such a star. Like, I've been very annoyed by Kajol of late, and I've just been like, oh, she's screechy, she's loud, like she needs to tone it down. But this movie made me remember just what a huge Kajol fan I used to be as a teenager, because she was just you can tell, like, there's Manisha, there's Bobby, and there's Kajol, and which one of those is the star with a capital S.
She's so confident.
Yeah.
Everything she does, she's so confident compared to everybody else,
And that is in spite of like Manisha being dressed up as the glamour doll, like Manisha is like all dressed in these like these cute little dresses and sexy outfits and stuff. And Kajol is very much dressed like the girl next door. But it doesn't matter because she just sets the screen on fire every time she comes on. She's just great.
Yeah. There was way more cleavage and navels in this movie than I'd remembered. I was like, what's going on here? So just to kind of put this in context, this movie was a massive, massive hit. Like this, who is the killer spoiler? It almost reminded me of what happened when Talash happened. Like people were texting each other, like, Kaiser Soze levels, like who is the killer of this movie? It's still considered as one of the best thrillers in Hindi cinema, which is an absurd title to give. But and this movie also became like a cult classic. Like, I mean, I hate saying cult classic because a cult is normally something that flopped and then got reappreciated. But I think here it does work because although it was a massive hit, I don't think it's seen as, a Yashraj movie or something like that, And I remembered nothing of this movie. I remembered absolutely nothing except the final twist. And this movie is batshit bonkers also. Like, but it is so much fun. I was totally on board. Like, I had so much fun watching this movie because I didn't remember anything of it. And I also think, like, everybody's quite good. Like, it's really well made, really well shot. The songs are really good. And Bobby is, like, at the height of his cool. Like, this was the Bobby, stardom of, it lasted it didn't last very long. It was like maybe 3-4 movies, but this was the height of it. Like, remember the glasses? Everybody was going to those damn glasses, right?
Yeah.
I didn't remember until I was watching this movie, and like his introduction thing where he's singing Dunya Hasino Ka
Yeah.
Mela, and he
Yeah.
comes like bobbing his head
Yeah.
into the frame from the shadows, and I suddenly remembered that not only was Bobby the dancing Deol,
Yeah.
but he was also very famous for his hair. Do you guys
Yes.
Oh
remember
yeah.
that?
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
that was a thing. Like I'd completely forgotten about it. And then all he does that entire song is just fling his hair about.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole 90% of the choreography is hair centric. Basically, it's around his hair.
Amrita, brownie points for using bobbing as a verb.
But can I ask, like, did you like Bobby's performance?
I honestly did. I honestly did. I have to say, it's like it's bonkers. But I really liked Bobby in this. I was like, wait. I was even going back to his IMDb. I was like, when did things go wrong for Bobby? Because here he seems to be on fire. Not for you, Pankaj. It didn't work. Where do you stand on Bobby?
No, it was good, but some of his expressions, again, like when you watch again, you see them like in one of the songs, he's so wooden. Like
Yeah.
all the women around him are dancing with expressions and all, and he's just standing and not even giving a smile. I think in one early song, I forgot which one was it, but I was just feeling like, okay, he is a little wooden in this film. He could have improved his expressions, but again, like he's not bad, like he's not terrible at all. But I was
Also,
just wondering-
this was like his third movie. This is the third
Yeah.
movie he did, like, and pretty much the next year after his debut. I think he in an interview I saw he'd broken his leg while shooting Barsat, and that's why they saw there was a song. Which one is it? Gehraiyan or what is it?
Bechania.
Bechania, that one, right? They basically did the whole dance step, so he because he couldn't move his leg. So, which was interesting. Where do you guys stand on Bobby? I think Sujoy, you are quite positive on Bobby, no? Like, if I'm not mistaken, you.
I mean, at this point, he has become some sort of a meme with all the Bollywood fans and Lord Bobby thingies, memes doing the rounds on Twitter and stuff. But I just get a kind of a wholesome vibe from him. Like I've seen the Bobby Naissance interviews doing the rounds, right? And he has been struggling to find his groove back. He had a whole string of he feels like he sort of missed the bandwagon in a way after a string of his movies didn't work, and then he's trying to come back with his new projects. So I saw him in Diwangi when I was rewatching Om Shanti Om the other day, and I was like, yeah, he used to be one of the big leagues. He has done Yash Raj movies. He's done so this is early Bobby, and I really enjoy him on screen. He has what it takes for a lead actor, and this was the 90s, and at the peak of his leather jacket, long hair, and the glasses phase, and I really enjoyed Gupt and him in it.
So last year Love Hostel came in. He's very good in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somehow he's found his moho back again, and even that there was this OTT, I forgot. I think it was Ashram.
Yeah,
he's pretty good in that as well. So
Class of '83 was quite good in too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I really enjoyed him in Love Hostel because that felt like him playing what he was supposed to play in Bichu. That's the Leon, the professional unofficial remake, right, with Rani Mukherjee, Bichu, and he plays this assassin, and he plays this really menacing version of that in Love Hostel.
Amrita, Bobby?
I don't he doesn't offend me in any way. But when Pankaj said, he's a little wooden, I laughed because I think Lord Bobby sort of invented wooden. But this is also why I think he and Kajol got on better than Manisha, because Manisha was very earnest. And that poor girl has like the worst choreography, right? Like she's just doing her level best with a lot of the choreography that she's been given. And also she has like a completely psycho character, which we will discuss in a little bit, because that gets really
Right?
enjoyable.
Like, I think Manisha is more psycho than Kajol in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But like Bobby, like there are these song. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to it, but like there are these bits in the song where, like Kajol and Bobby are dancing and they're being given like terrible choreography, same as Manisha, but the two of them are just cracking up, and like you can see Bobby like giggling as he's like bending down and like hiding his face. And I can just imagine like Kajol's, like what Kajol must have said to him right before the shot was taken, because, we all know Kajol and we love her. So I can just imagine like the two of them just basically bitching about it and like having a good time. Whereas like Manisha is very much the outsider, trying her best, being very earnest, doing PT with her, with her cleavage hanging out, poor thing. So yeah, I think Bobby's fine. Like he's definitely, I like the fact that he is very publicly vulnerable in a way that is not really seen in Bollywood. Like he's talked very openly about the fact that he feels like a failure because, he wasn't making any money. And he really wanted a job, and that's how like Salman enrolled him in the Salman Khan, Berozgar Yojana. Yeah. So like that was like I appreciate a man who's like, you know what, I need some work and I'll do whatever it is that it takes to. And I think like, even though he is a Deol, he was willing to play like the sidekick in a Salman Khan movie, and he was willing to work on streaming, and and he didn't do the thing that I would have expected, which is like, oh, I'm a Deol, I only do hero roles, unlike some other people that we can talk about. So yeah, Bobby's fine in my book.
Who are the choreographers? Is it Rekha and Chinni Prakash?
Yeah,
has to be.
Okay.
Yeah. I think also the Deol name is something we haven't talked about. You mentioned it, but you have to put him as a contrast to Sunny Deol, right? Like he was the one that could do, he could move. He was kind of like connected with the young audience, where Sunny Deol was maybe like the previous audience. So they were trying to place him in a certain way. But I don't think that was kind of a long-term strategy, like being the young kind of hip guy. And like, but that vulnerability is definitely something, you wouldn't associate that with the Deol brand necessarily, which is very like masculine. So yeah, I do appreciate him. I thought but I also take on your point, Pankaj, that like there was a few moments that he was very much like what is this guy even trying to do? It was like feeling a bit Kareebish, like why Kareeb flopped, like that kind of sincerity he didn't have. But I do think the styling, the action, and the dancing was actually really good, like more than I remembered it to be. So yeah. Before we get into the movie, I want to talk quickly about Rajiv Rai as a film director. And Pankaj, where do you kind of rate him? Because I assume you've seen pretty much all of his movies, and I also have to say that I think he basically left Bollywood because he got he got put under pressure, or even they had an assassination attempt on his life by the underworld. So he basically just left to survive, and now he's coming back with a new movie. I saw something on Insta called Zora, if I'm not mistaken. So you can, if you go to his Instagram page, you can see like shots of the movie. But I think it's very hard to come back after like a 20-year hiatus. So Pankaj, man, where do you stand on Rajiv Rai?
Oh, I love him. I love all his films. I think Gupt is probably my favorite, but Mohra is exactly like, which is another film that I really, really enjoy. I haven't revisited Mohra. But one thing that about his films is it's just so much of, I already mentioned it, it's just so much of style and masala in the sense, like, and you never get bored with his films.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun, and I completely enjoy his films. And, even his later films like Pyar, Ishq aur Mohabbat or Asamba. I haven't seen everything, but the music is still so good. The Asamba one and the Pyar, Ishq aur Mohabbat. So he's like somebody who, like the 90s filmmaker who just, when I think of 90s, he's the first name that comes to my mind.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think, like at that era, you had like, he was up there with Subhash Ghai, with Mukul Anand, even like Yash Raj and, like the Raj Kapoor movies, like all of these movies were like event releases. And I think Rajiv Rai was one of them. Like he built that brand in front of our eyes. Like with 4 or 5 movies, he didn't do that many, but every one of that had great music. They looked great. They were a big event, and they all delivered massive numbers, I think. And also this idea of auteur cinema, I think it applies to Rajiv Rai because a movie or a shot of his is a very Rajiv Rai kind of movie, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just like he's a very, very interesting
character. Like when we talk about the formula, the Bollywood formula movie, Rajiv Rai is the master of that. If it comes to 90s formula, you have all the who's who of that guy in this movie, and that is what the Rajiv Rai formula is like. Be it Tridev,
it has all the villains. Like there's no one, like except Amrish Puri, everybody was in there. Like,
and Pran, सबको ले लिया, आ जाओ सभी. So I tweeted like we were talking about cinema Marte Dam Tak and Kantisha in the previous episode, and like how the cast of Gupt and Gunda have a Venn diagram, which a large portion which is an intersection of the two. Everybody in this, like a whole list of from Bob Christo to Prem Chopra, Kulbhushan Kharbanda, Dalip Tahil, Raza Murad, Sharat Saxena, Harish Patel, the list goes on, man.
I literally let out a scream when Bob Christo showed up.
Jai Bajrang Bali.
Mera Bajrang Bali. Mera Bajrang Bali.
I was amused by, Harish Patel's character. He's only laughing in the film and like
and saying beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
And also like freaking Mukesh Rishi, is his name Lambu Anna in this? Because he's called Lambu Atta in Gunda.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me try to find it. Amrita, where do you stand on Rajiv Rai?
Well, like I said, the man made Tridev, Vishwatma and Mohra. He's allowed everything.
इसके ऊपर नहीं बोलने का.
Did you guys watch his first one, Yudh? Has anybody seen this? I might have seen it, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I know I've seen it, but I don't remember it.
That's an epic poster, though. Like Anil and Jackie and Danny in the middle.
Yeah, I want to watch this.
Yeah.
Pran is there. It's kind of like that sexiness. Like I'm seeing like Jackie Shroff kissing some lady on a rock on IMDb. Like it already has the hallmark. See, I'm telling you, auteur cinema, man. You see one shot and it's Tina Munim that he's kissing.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's get into the story, or let's try to get into the story a little bit, no?
Yeah. Your Excellency.
Yeah.
Please begin.
Like, because it starts with a setup of like this debate going on with the governor about open door policy in India, right?
Yeah.
And did you? I found it funny because whenever Raj Babbar puts on that voice of "Trust me, I'm a good guy," I immediately don't trust him. Like,
yeah,
I can't trust this guy. But literally, his whole cabinet is all of the villains in the world, and one of them, I think his doctor is called Modi, and his lawyer is called Gandhi.
Yeah. I was wondering, and his wife Priya Tendulkar had that streak like Indira Gandhi. white hair streak. So I was like, is there something hidden going on here?
Yeah.
I think so. I think there is some sort of like undercurrent of things trying to say, right? And like, I just also find it funny how much the landscape politically has shifted, right? Like, it's such a time capsule of 97 where they're debating about, shall we open up India to the world? And then you still have the same players that you have now in politics, but they're sitting in different seats and they have like different levels of power, right?
And
Amrita,
also,
what do you
like,
think
very futuristically progressive in a way that the labor unions have a say, and they are saying like, oh, if the robots will come and steal our jobs, and we are now in 2023 and still talking about that.
Yeah. Although when Bobby started beating up Sharad Saxena, the workers got really, really happy. So they never really explained why the workers don't like Sharad Saxena.
Oh, because he's selling them out. That's why they say that, but then why didn't they just vote him out or like beat him up? But they're just like, well, he's done what we weren't able to do for years. You shan't arrest him. And then, we have to talk about Om Puri, man. Like Om Puri is the best.
Go for it. Talk about Om Puri.
Like Om Puri basically shows up and he spends the entire movie looking at everyone, but especially Manisha, Kajol, and Bobby with like the levels of exasperation, like I was posting it on Twitter, like that meme of the Pakistani cricket fan as he's like watching the cricket team collapse.
Dejection.
Yes.
He's looking with dejection.
Like he's just disappointed by humanity. Like that's the level. That's basically what's happening with Om Puri in this film. Like he's just like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Like all throughout. And the best is like, so Manisha is like we said before, like she's a total psycho. She is just like, I'm gonna marry Bobby, and then everybody's like, but he doesn't want to marry you. He's like in love with this other girl, and she's like, yeah, but like I can just try and then he will love me. Like I just
she's like a female incel. Female incel.
And also like he's like weirdly like asking her to like save him from the police. He's just like, hey, can you pay like 5 lakhs to this guy and like get me out of prison? And she's just like, yeah, sure.
My favorite scene was where like, okay, Manisha, there's 50 cops around us, but I have a locket in one of my pockets that I will not specify which pocket. Get it out of my pocket, take it and steal it. And it's like a 7 kilo sone ka locket.
When he said like locket, I was expecting something like tiny, and then it's literally like what Asim is saying. It's like when giant, like like a locket inside a locket kind of locket.
It's like a whole Bitcoin. It's like,
is that a locket in your pocket, or are you happy to see me?
But then, like, what I really enjoy about this movie is that they literally write Manisha's scenes like she's one of the villains, So she has the same Kantisha vibe to her that the rest of them have. So she's just basically like, the first time she and Om Puri meet, he's like looking inside her bedroom to see if Bobby's hiding there. And she's like, what? You can't come in here. I'm a lady. You can't do that. And then she realizes Bobby's safe. And then she's just like, he was here. We spent the night together. And Om Puri is just like, you need help. And then he goes away. And then literally every single time she and Om Puri come face to face, it's just a variation of Manisha going like, I am going to save Bobby. And then Om Puri saying, lady, you need to see a psychiatrist. Like, what is wrong with you?
It's when they were on the train station and like he's trying and Bobby escapes and like she comes out, ha ha ha, and she's like, pocket mein locket hai, pocket mein locket.
Like they did like plant all the seeds of showing that Manisha's got problems in her head, but never did they have a single hint that Kajol had anger issues, right?
Yeah.
That only happened like in the last 10 minutes of the movie for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. I think also it's like the funny part is that like Kajol just totally f's off as the moment he goes to jail. Like we don't
Yeah.
even see her anymore. It's like why is she not even like saying goodbye? He's like, can I have a hug? It's Manisha. Where is Kajol? Shouldn't Kajol be getting the hug? I don't even understand what's going on. Pankaj, man, what did you think of Om Puri in this movie?
He was great. I think when he he had done this Ard Satya.
Yeah.
I was wondering if they hired him because of, like that Ard Satya connection, the police officer. But
Yeah.
he was great. And then there was some like funny scenes when he finally gets hold of Bobby and then he lets him go. Because he's like, मैं humanity,
Yeah.
मैंने सच्चा उसमें देखा है.
Yeah.
But he was great. But this film reminded me a lot about. Have you seen Pukar?
Yes.
So where
Yes.
the Madhuri becomes psycho in the end, right? So I was like, it's sort of the similar story where Shilpa Shirodkar character was the nicer one, although Manisha here is a little weird. And then
Namrata Shirodkar.
Namrata
Yes,
Shirodkar.
Namrata Shirodkar. And then Anil Kapoor, and in the end, Madhuri was completely like goes psycho like Kajol. But I was just thinking like, okay, this looks a little like Pukar. But otherwise, I think Om Puri was great.
But I think the problem is that if you were Madhuri and somebody chooses Namrata Shrodkar over you, you would go crazy. Well, Manisha should just accept it now.
Speaking of Om Puri, the one thing I'd like to mention is when Om Puri is stabbed, right? And he is in the hospital. And
Right.
his bandage pattern is like how Karina was in Ahsoka. All I could think of was, why is this looking like a summer thong with blood patches? And he shows up in the climax, right? Wearing that particular bandage thong and starts shooting. Yeah.
The amount of killing in this movie, like just first of all, like Om Puri is Judge Dredd. He just shoots everybody, doesn't
Yeah.
ask any question, like flat out killing. And I think we're supposed to be happy about that. But then also the fact that Bobby kills so many people to prove that he's not a killer.
Right.
Insanity.
I mean, he
Insanity.
was literally torturing Prem Chopra in the end,
Yeah.
like putting his legs in, water, hot water. And I was wondering, like he's talking, I'm innocent. And at the same time, he's doing all these things to, to prove himself he's not a murderer. Like, it was so funny.
He was making paya basically with the
Paya with the pie.
Yeah.
Amrita, I was trying to talk about the political structure at the start and we completely derailed. But what did you think of that whole setup of open door policy and Raj Babbar?
See, like we had this conversation doing Pathan, right? Like when we were talking about, like, well, what does it mean that Pathan began with Kashmir and the abrogation of Article 370? And this is what, like, I was trying to say, but like I couldn't really articulate it at the time, which is that Bollywood likes to center itself within the current discourse. Whether that discourse makes any sense is another matter. And usually it doesn't. Just as it doesn't in this one. Like, what the heck does any of that mean? Like, none of it makes sense. But the point was to get Raj Babbar at a table surrounded by villains that you knew were bad news so that you could sort of murk up the waters a little bit. Like, that's what they were trying to do.
This was a time when you could not trust Prem Chopra, no matter what
Yeah.
his character was going to be. Even before his character would speak a single line, the moment you saw Prem Chopra, you would think like, oh no, that's bad news.
And, Raj Babbar is actually a governor.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the politics, governor is isn't the one who sets policy. It's actually the chief minister. Yeah. And I was wondering, what is this governor doing here? And where is the chief minister? Who is the chief minister? Governor is only for, like a union territory. You might have a lieutenant governor or an administrator. And this looked like Bombay or Maharashtra. So I wasn't sure, like, who is he? Like, why is the governor setting this policy?
I was also going to ask you guys this because they call him Your Excellency, which I also didn't understand. Like, is he some sort of king? Like, what is he supposed to be? Like, or a judge? Like, I didn't understand.
Yes, he is the king of Daman and Diu, which is now open for international investment. That is basically what is happening.
Okay, then it makes, because Daman and Diu is actually a union territory, so it.
Oh no, I was making a joke.
I'm sorry, I thought it is actually Daman and Diu.
This is Mandwa.
Okay.
Mandwa ka Raja.
So that was the intro of the kind of the setup of the movie. Then the other insane intro is the character, like the three main characters that get introduced in the college sequence, right?
With the uncle.
With the uncle. I have to say,
salesman.
Because it starts with Manisha saying bye uncle when he drops her off to don't stab my classmate. This is the arc of the scene, how it goes. And the level of confidence you need to walk into a class that's filled up with college students and go to a girl and say main salesman hu. And then Bobby takes his giraban and says main bhi salesman hu. Like, amazing writing, no notes. Love it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And I definitely love the waistcoat that Bobby is wearing on his college day, which has got like really shimmery roses, like in big prints on his waistcoat. I was like, who fucking wears this? But like Lord Bobby does.
And then it's immediately Bobby goes sad. Bobby is like, "Main duniya mein akela hu." And then Kajol is, "Nahin, I'm your childhood friend." Yeah. And then when that is, then Manisha comes, "Hey, don't take badly, my uncle. Let's go ice cream." And he's like, "Yeah, let's go ice cream." I was like, "Wow, amazing, man." I loved it. This is like the level of bonkers. That's what I was saying, Amrita, when we were talking about Cinema Marte Dum Tak. There is not much difference between the movies those guys are making and these guys are making. Like when you look at those two sequences, like there's not that much difference, right? It's like bigger actors, better choreography, better songs, but essentially it's the same level of writing in a way.
No, it's what Sid Anand was saying in his interview with Anupama that we were discussing earlier, which is that it's about audience buy-in. If you can get the audience to just sort of gloss over whatever ridiculous thing you are putting in front of them, then that's fine. But if it reads as fake to the audience, then that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And that sort of brings me to the question that what is the reality that Rajiv Rai has to face with his next release? Because from the Instagram page, guys, I don't think this movie is going to work.
Yeah.
The Zora?
Yeah. Did you get a chance to see the Instagram page, Pankaj? I should have sent you the link.
I would check.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm saying it's just such a challenging time to make these kind of movies. Like the way he makes his movies seem to be, stars and big budget and music. And I want to talk a bit about the music too, actually, because the whole soundtrack, it's ripped off. Like there's not much original in it. Like the theme, like I even think there's a song in there that rips off A.R. Rahman. Like there's a song that has the flute from the Bombay theme in it. The song Ye Pyar Kya Hai, where they're all dancing together. If you listen, I'm 100% sure you can hear A.R. Rahman's flute Bombay theme in it. Like it's just in there. There's like Mike Oldfield in it. There's Deep Forest in it. It's like pretty much, but it still totally works. Like the soundtrack is a banger, and I just don't think you can do that anymore this way,
Yeah. But again, like Viju Shah of his time. That was the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Vijusha did Mora, which was also a banger soundtrack, and like we all still dance to Sat Samundar from Vishwatna. That's a banger of a track, Pa, 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 pa.
When Salman did it in Kick, we all freaked out. That song is still that powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think then there's a whole setup between Bobby and his father and all that, which is like lots of emotion. But I think the rest of the movie is quite fast paced to get to the reveal and the spoiler, which I think we can talk about a little bit, right? So, Kajol is the killer, right? Kajol is the killer. We can finally say it. And I love that she had like special shoes that she wore for killing to kind of confuse us. Like, this is like very
She
manly.
had a murder outfit.
She had a murder outfit, and I think it looks like a pretty cool outfit still. Leather jacket, jeans, and a massive locket. It's choices. You need to accessorize, apparently.
The locket with like her and Bobby's photo in it, just to remind herself why she's out murdering.
Yeah.
But like the photo thing just made me remind me that back in the day, people that were in love, they wouldn't necessarily have a picture together, right? They would have like two pictures that you would put together, but like you know what I mean? Like now we just take selfies left and right, like it has no. But at that time, you wouldn't even have a picture. Like it's just a funny thing, like a funny shift that's happened, right? But yeah, that locket it's crazy because like the whole open door policy, like who could have killed Raj Babbar, all of that doesn't matter at the end of it's like a proper MacGuffin of this movie. Like I also love that with the locket, he gives it to his little brother.
Yeah.
And the little brother immediately takes a screwdriver to
He solves it within 5 seconds. Like, and that the actor who plays the little brother, Harsh Lunia, I remember him from Just Mohabbat. If you guys used to watch that show on TV.
What is Just Mohabbat? I've never heard of that.
It was a show on Sony TV back in the day.
Okay. And he was like a kid in it, or he was
he played the main character in the show.
Oh, okay. Because I think he was actually quite good. Like for a kid, like in a movie, I didn't find him annoying. He had a few scenes in there, and I thought he was actually quite capable.
And the house where Kajol lives?
Yeah.
That also is a very popular TV-related house. So there was this show called Tutu Meme. It used to come very early on. It's the same house. And then there's another house where Prem Chopra used to live, and Neena Gupta used to do this show called Saas.
Yeah.
I think that house has also appeared there. So they have used the same houses. So that when I also think of Gupt, it always reminds me that Kajol's house is same as Tutu Meme's house.
That's also the house where Divana was shot. That's where Divya Bharati and Sushma Swaraj. No,
Sushma Seth.
Sushma Seth live. That's the same. You can tell by the staircase. Like that's the giveaway. Like that staircase is like so iconic.
Yeah.
Isn't the house where Raj Babbar is living the Andaz Apna Apna house, or am I confusing it something else?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It doesn't have the Andaz Apna Apna angle though. This is always where the two stairs on the both sides. But the Dil To Pagal Hai house is the Andaz Apna Apna house.
But did you see like this film also had these very artistic things lined all over? Even in that ruined place or the fort where Bobby was living, there was this Greek statue and all these other places you could find like these, random wooden statues, even at Raj Babbar's place, and then these paintings and all, like no sense, but it just showed that, okay, they're trying to make it a little bit more stylist. So it was interesting to see these things, like, and then there are pigeons when in the final song, not the final song, where again Manisha and Kajol, they're trying to seduce him or something like that. Pigeons had the background and this, I found it like, okay, this is a lot of style. I didn't remember this at all earlier. So in the second watch, you tend to see these things.
Because also that sequence where he's in jail and he escapes, right? Bobby, I mean,
through the toilet.
to the toilet, and
Like suddenly it's the Count of Monte Cristo. Like he has.
No. Like when he does that shot from the toilet and Tej Sapru is like, no, they escaped. I was like, oh my god, they're doing Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
100% Shawshank Redemption, because it came out 3 years before, and 100% that's what they were going for. I was like, man, it requires an amazing way of thinking to take that and putting it into Gupt, No notes. Amazing.
Make the whole plot of Shawshank into like a mini subplot in this movie.
Yeah, it had to be like, we need Shawshank, but we need to add Kalia into it too, Both dono hone chahiye. That's skill set. But I want to talk about Kajol too, right? Like, because it's not just the reveal of, and I think people legit, like, there's a Lehre video of the release, and literally everybody is talking about Kajol and Bobby Deol, basically, right? They love the movie, Kajol and Bobby. And I think Kajol, because she's gone for a lot of the movie, she really gives it her all, not only with the reveal that she's the killer, but also that breakdown scene where she goes crazy with Paresh Rawal. And I think she's ace in it. She's breaking the walls, she's breaking the windows, and I feel she even kicked Paresh Rawal in the balls, like very lightly, which again I can applaud. So all for that. But I think she does an amazing job here. Pankaj, what did you think of the whole sequence where the reveal happens and she's kind of the killer and all?
Yeah, when I watched this movie again, I somehow felt like, okay, it was only Kajol's that final scene where she's killing Manisha. I didn't remember this scene at all. And when I watched it, I was like, oh, actually, this is true. Like she was so good in that scene. And then, the movies very cleverly gave some hints of it from the earlier time. Like there's this time where she says, like, don't trust Manisha Koirala. She's trying to put you, trying to just use you or something like that. Don't trust women like Manisha Koirala. And then I just realized, some of her expressions and all, she does it so well. Like we could see a little bit of her psycho side, but not as overtly. But when that final thing happened, she was great in it. And then even the final scenes where she's killing, she's trying to murder Manisha, it was just a great scene, very well executed, and I enjoyed it. How about you, Sujoy?
Also like that they flash back that there was a sequence where Paresh Rawal and Kajol went to go see Raj Babbar, right? It gives a bit more context about what happened. And also the thing is, like, there's always a bit of truth, right? Like she is telling Bobby, Manisha's got the hots for you. Stop being such an idiot about it, right? So Bobby is like, he has not noticed anything clearly. Like he's like in his own world. But
I think the reveal works in a way. Like that was the big thing, right? And there is a bit of a misdirection, though. I think we are all focusing on the peripheral villains all throughout the course of this movie once Raj Babbar falls off the scenes, and then we are led to believe that all these players are going to be one of the murderers. And I think that's the whole trope of a murder mystery, that you lay these breadcrumbs to lead to a certain murderer towards the end. But I think there was a lot of misdirection in that we were not led to know what Kajol was capable of or her background as such. We only knew, like, oh, she disappeared from Bobby's life for a long time and she went to boarding school and she's just reappeared, and we don't know anything else. So that made the whole reveal sort of contrived or misleading in a way. But obviously when I watched the first time, I was like, oh my god, Kajol is the killer. I cannot believe it, and the whole thing about
spoil it for you before you watched it, or do you remember if somebody spoiled it for you?
It was spoiled for me.
Okay.
It was spoiled for me.
I think she started this whole I think after only her performance, they started this Filmfare Award for Best Villain or something.
Oh, really?
I think so.
No,
she
no,
won
they
it, right?
had Filmfare Award for Best Villain,
Okay.
but she was the first woman to win
Yeah,
it.
okay, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Amrita, Kajol the Killer.
Yeah, Kajol was amazing. Like this is like one of my favorite roles by her. But what I really enjoyed was when Bobby goes to see Paresh Rawal in jail, and he's just like, yeah, like she's my daughter, bro. Like, like I have to help her. So I'll go to jail. You just marry her. Like things will be okay. And then Sadashivam Rapurkar comes running and goes like, hey, you're here. Then who's killing all those other people? And then he's just like, oh no, she's still killing. You need to go stop her. And then all of a sudden, Mukesh Rishi comes out of nowhere and starts beating up Bobby. And I'm like, why? Why are you beating? Like, I'd completely forgotten that entire plot point, but not Rajiv Rai. Rajiv Rai remembered. And so suddenly, Mukesh Rishi, and then Mukesh Rishi, poor thing, gets murdered in the silliest way possible.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just asking, why was he beating him? Is it because Prem Chopra paid him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
That's
was a
right.
hitman,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So I have
Sujoy,
an
you were
interesting-
saying something. Yeah.
Yeah. I have an interesting piece of trivia that I found on IMDb. It's basically saying, while scripting Gupt, Rajiv Rai was in two minds about making the film. And one day in London, Rajiv and his wife Sonam went to see Agatha Christie's stage play Mousetrap. And Rajiv told Sonam that if he was not able to guess who the killer was, he would not make Gupt. And during the interval, Rajiv and a few friends all guessed who the killer was, and Rajiv picked a character no one else had, and at the end of the play Rajiv was proved right. So then he sort of understood that he could write a murder mystery, and that's how he decided to make Gupt.
Oh, he was like, "Main hu Sikandar."
So do you think a
Nice,
film
nice.
like Gupt would work today, in the sense, we saw what happened in Talash, now it's even more, by work I mean, would people be able to keep the secrets to themselves today, do you think?
And also, what are your favorite movies of this genre? Like, not only Bollywood, but this murder mystery. And I know, Amrita, you're a huge fan of murder mysteries in general. Because I was thinking about this because I've been watching a show lately, and actually, Amrita, I wanted to recommend it to you. It's called Poker Face. It's
Yes, by
created by Ryan Johnson
Ryan Johnson, yeah.
and Natasha Lyonne, and it
Yeah.
almost harkens back to those Agatha Christie murder mystery, Murder She Wrote kind of days. And it's interesting that this format of show has come back, where you would think it doesn't work, but Poker Face is so much fun. I've subscribed to this service because of it, and now I'm hooked. Basically, they reeled me in with a subscription where I didn't want to do, but I think it's streaming on Peacock, sorry. And I love it. Amrita, watch it. You'll really, really love it, I think. I hope I've not oversold it. But yeah, it's an interesting way, I don't know. I do think people spoil a lot on social media. But I also think, and I think Gupt is a good example of that. Knowing that Kajol was the killer, I still feel that the movie has enough in there to really appreciate and enjoy it. And I think even with Talash, which is another one of these, that was the same thing we discussed, right? That even though we know who the final reveal of that movie, the movie still works on so many levels. But I don't know, are there other movies where necessarily the reveal doesn't work, or it's not a genre that Bollywood has done that much, right? If I'm not mistaken, can you guys think of any?
Not really.
100
days, yeah.
100 days.
Yeah.
That's old again. People probably don't remember this, right?
Then even older is Ittefaq, which was also remade.
Right.
Thing.
Have you seen Raat Akeli Hai? That came
Yeah.
a few years ago. I think.
Yeah.
That was good. That was really good.
And then, of course, Talash. And then there's actually quite a few, I feel, but they're not big actiony set pieces like Gupt or 100 Days. I think those two are actually outliers in the whole crime thing. They tend to be smaller films like Ittefaq and Talash.
Yeah.
Manorama 6 Feet Under. Again, that's a small film.
Yeah, that was a good film.
That is a very good film.
See, my theory is that the movie should work irrespective of who the killer is and the reveal. If like we all know that freaking what's his face, Chris, whoever is the killer in Knives Out, he's the bad guy. Even with that knowledge, the movie in itself is amazing. We know him; he is the baddie in the middle of the movie, but then the whole movie ties itself really amazingly well.
And also I think it's like I think you have to change the genre in a way, like Drishyam, right?
Yeah.
Drishyam is not that different from these kind of movies, right? But instead of the killer, it's like how did it's just, how does he get away from the situation he's in? But in a way, it's kind of the same setup, right? Another movie I thought of is Kahani, for example, right? That's also like but although is it like murder mysteries are different than a whodunit or like a reveal at the end or a twist at the end. So maybe
Kahani is a thriller. Kahani is not it's not crime fiction. It's a thriller.
Yeah, I've got a list here, but it's like pretty much all South Indian movies. Like it doesn't seem like I've got like the first one. Like there's a whole list on IMDb, and only number 36 is 39 is 36 Chinatown, and 40 is 8x10 Tasveer. All the rest is like South Indian movies. So it doesn't look like Bollywood has really invested in this genre as much. Haseen Dilruba came out a couple of last year, 2 years ago. Again, I don't know if that falls into it's more
and also like
that,
Monica, Oh My Darling, that was kind of a murder mystery.
Yeah. But again, it's more like Drishyam, like how did they do it instead of like who did it? No.
Yeah.
Andhadhun. How did we forget that?
Right. These are all good movies, right? Like why don't we do then? Pankaj, I mean, they do make these movies, but and I think even with it being spoiled, they still work, right? Most of them, it seems to me. Yeah. Let's talk quickly about the songs before we wrap up. And I think with the songs, we also have to talk about the visuals of the songs, right? It has to be like together, right? Like the soundtrack was probably one of the biggest selling soundtracks of the year. I want to read also the Hindi movies that were the biggest of that year. So it's 97 had Dil To Pagal Hai, Border, Ishq, Pardes, and then Gupt. Then 6 was Ziddi, Hero Number 1, Judai, Koila, Deewana Mastana, and Judwa.
What a fantastic year, man.
This is good films. I mean, films-wise also, it's good.
Yeah, this is like catnip for Khandaan audience. Like we could do all of these and have a good chat about them. Like Judai, like that's a good one to talk about, But yeah, the songs, Sujoy, man, which song stood out for you? Which one did you like the most, like visually or, like the music of it itself?
I think from a audiophile stereo system testing point perspective, Mushkil Bada Ye Pyar Hai is like up there, It's got the deep bass and the really high pitches, and it visually it's like stunning as well. Mushkil Bada Ye Pyar Hai, and I really like Duniya Hasino Ka Mela with the Udit Narayan's like fresh vocals and Sunita Rao like seductively singing. I love that song.
Yeah,
and obviously the title track is just on another level, man. Yeah.
Pankaj, what was kind of your standout track for you?
For me, like more than the, of course, soundtrack, I liked the visuals a lot. One was that whole song of, the first one, Mere Khwabon Mein Tu, Meri Saanson Mein Tu. Like they've put a lot of thought in the songs as well. So like the Manisha ones are shot in the desert, while Kajol ones are shot in the ice-capped mountains, So these two different women, and like all the scenes are in that. So I really enjoyed that one. And then also...
It's the true song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah. And then the last song also, it's so beautifully, it's choreographed on the stage. So many different Indian dances are there, like going on. There's Kathak, there is Manipuri, and then there's Bharatanatyam also, and then these three people come and
Kathakali.
dance. It's Kathakali, and this dancing like, and it's shot so beautifully from the top scenes, and like Manisha's red dress when she's lying on the floor. The visuals just stood out for me, like for all these songs. And there's another song where I think Bobby and Kajol are surrounded by the clouds. I still remember that shot. I think it's Khandaan or somewhere, where how the choreographer has and the cinematographer has basically captured them. So of course soundtrack is good, but it's just the visuals that stood out for me this time when I watched it.
Yeah. Amrita?
I agree with Pankaj. I was not expecting the visuals to be as good as they were, or as I found them to be. The multicultural thing that they do in the climax song, that is a Rajiv Rai thing. Like he did that in Vishwatma as well. They were like when Nasir is like dancing. There's like a background crew of people in, I don't know, like Kathakali, or I can't remember now, but like Odyssey or something like that. So that's a thing that he did, but it's always like this grand spectacle. And he understands the staging of the spectacle song for Bollywood, where a statement is being made. And it's not like an item song. It's more integral to the plot than the way similar songs are being staged today, I would say. And I really enjoyed it. Like this is the kind of Bollywood I grew up on, and I miss it. And yeah, like as far as the songs go, Mere Khwabon Mein Tu is probably like the standout track for me. But like it's a pretty great Vijusha album, like the sole purpose, the sole purpose of an album like this is to churn out bangers, which Vijusha did very well.
Yeah. And it sounded very different from anything else around that time. It sounded always very modern, very kind of like synth-based. It had like a very particular sound, like a Vijusha sound. And it's unfortunate we haven't heard more of him. He didn't have like the prolific career that a lot of people could have had at that time. I also really love the visuals of Meri Aankhon Mein Tu, because also they look so good, like the dressing that they have, like the way Bobby looks with that yellow thing and the white pants and stuff in the desert, it looks really, really good. And there's the final shot of the sun setting, and there's just the silhouette of them dancing together. It's like a beautiful shot. It still really, really works. And I also liked, this was maybe not my favorite song, but there's a song, Ye Pyasi Mohabbat, where it's basically the sex song between Kajol and Bobby in a khandar, and Manisha is like hiding behind thing, and she doesn't leave. She's still watching them. And I was like, oh, this really reminds me of Hey Rama from Rangila. That kind of like sexy khandar vibes together, it just reminded me a little bit of that. I was like, Manisha, please leave. This is getting awkward for everybody. Good song.
I had one thing to point out, which was basically, where did you guys watch this movie?
I watched it on your recommendation on Z5.
Yeah. How about you, Pankaj?
I actually was watching it on YouTube, but then Asim shared me, I think, something which you found.
Yeah, that's the version I watched too, because it's pretty impossible to find this movie, right?
Yeah. Which, the YouTube strategy of many uploaders these days is to make a rant video and put the thumbnail to the official poster of the movie, and just a really long title which has a hidden like a rant and review of the movie or something.
Which might be why we get insults on our YouTube channel.
Exactly. Movie dal bhen ka. It was so difficult to find this, but also I think the Z5 print has like a lot of footage missing, because originally the movie is almost 3 hours long, And on Z5, it's like 2 hours and 37 or something like that.
Oh, wow. Wow. It's quite a fast-paced movie, so I don't know what you would cut out necessarily either. Like it's kind of like, it goes along quite well. It's a shame, like it just makes you think that, like these movies have not, and maybe they're being shown on satellite channels or stuff like that, but it's definitely not something that, the original owners of the movie are probably earning anything on, right?
Yeah, no anymore.
And that's kind of a shame that there's no, a way to, conserve these movies. Yeah. Pankaj, any final thoughts on Gupt? Anything that we didn't talk about?
No, I think we covered everything. I'll just say like it's a good film. It holds up pretty well even for me today.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Pankaj is like, please let me go home.
I wasn't expecting to talk this much about Gupt. Sujoy, any final things you want to say about Gupt?
I have one dialogue of Udham Singh, Inspector Om Puri says when he is being recruited to come back to do the manhunt, right? He says, "Jab zameen lage phatne, tab prasad lage batne." That's such an amazing line, man. I want that on a t-shirt.
I thought you were gonna say "Danda kar dunga."
The "Danda kar dunga" is the what is name? Yeah,
It's approved, I think.
Yeah. Such amazing villains. Amrita, any final things on Gupt you want to say?
Gupt.
Yes, I would like to say that the title of this movie is Gupt, and you should go watch it because you know what? It's like a time capsule, and it doesn't matter that you now know who the killer was because honestly, the movie has nothing to do with that. Yeah. It's like the movie is going in one direction, and at the end, they're just like, "Oh, wait a minute, we also need to tell people who the actual killer was," and they're like, "Twist." So that's what happened. So you can go watch it. Don't worry.
And this one,
and like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this one best film, best director, and best villain at the Filmfare Awards. So this is not like a movie and was a massive hit, but like I think just not being accessible or people have certain feelings about Bobby Deol, that it's not stood the test of time necessarily like the other movies that we mentioned that came out that year. But I do think it needs to be revisited because it's actually quite fun. So sorry, you were saying?
No, Pankaj was about to say something.
No, I was saying, like, I had just one trivia thing. So I was trying to find, that whole locket thing. There's this photograph of somebody. I thought it's some Alfred Nobel type somebody. But actually I tried to search on it and then it's about, I didn't understand it, but it's about half sovereign coins that were put out in the UK. And so they have copied from there, and half sovereign was put by some king. I didn't understand it fully what is a half sovereign coin, but I was just very curious because the locket had such a very different picture, and like it doesn't seem like belonging to an Indian thing, right? So just wanted to add this trivia bit.
I think a half sovereign is what Harry is. Let's wrap it up. I think we had a great pick, Nim. We really appreciated watching this movie, revisiting it. So if like Nim, you want to pick a movie, sign up to Patreon, and I think this is the third tier, and then you can pick a movie. And I think we'll try to do once a month. We'll do a listener's pick, so it can be more of a regular thing. So that's the goal in any case. Amrita, you also want to plug something that we've launched, right? Before we go.
Yes, so we are doing a newsletter from now on with the state of the world, and it's just an easy way for everyone to keep abreast of everything that we are doing. So you don't need to hunt through our socials to find out who our upcoming guests might be, or what we covered in our episodes over the month. Also, it's like a very handy way for us to announce our giveaways, which is basically what prompted us to launch the newsletter this month, actually, because Asim, you want to tell them about the giveaway that we have for this month?
Yeah, so we have 2 Blu-ray copies of Bones and All, the movie with Timothée Chalamet and director of Call Me By Your Name. And we have 2 copies. So sign up and then we'll pick out people randomly and send them the Blu-ray if you're interested, or if you just want to sign up to the newsletter, that would also be cool. So both of those things we're doing this month. Yeah.
So the newsletter is not just for the giveaways. It's also like a handy place for us to announce, like, if you're going on hiatus, if like certain changes are coming, if like special episodes are about to be released, if we have like fun guests like Pankaj coming on, all those things will go in the newsletter. And we're not going to send it like very often. It's just going to be a monthly thing, sort of like a monthly wrap up. So head on over. The link is in our show notes, and we are also announcing it on Twitter and on our other socials. So sign up, spread the word, and keep listening.
Yeah. So Pankaj, man, this was so much fun. Thanks for coming on, and we'll get you back on for a Khan movie. That would be fun too, I guess, right? Which Khan movie would you pick if you would pick a movie?
I think firstly, thank you for inviting me. Really enjoyed coming here. I've been listening to the Khandaan podcast for a long time. And in terms of the movie, I think you've covered almost every Khan movie which I would have watched or I would have liked. But maybe my favorite, I would say Kal Ho Na Ho, if at all.
Nice. Yeah, so good we got you for a non-Khan movie. We threw you a curveball, right?
Yeah.
So where can people find you online, Pankaj?
Yeah, so I have a Twitter account, which is my last name underscore first name, which is Sachdeva underscore Pankaj. And I also have an Instagram account called Reading Films, where I write a little bit about films. And otherwise, you can read all my writings on my blog, which is called dichotomyof-irony.blogspot.com.
Yeah, and I loved your write-up of Dil Chahta Hai Tu. I think that's the one that's pinned on your Twitter too, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so that's shameless plug. I've written a self-published book on Dil Chahta Hai. So it's the first... it's on my Twitter, the pinned tweet on my Twitter. It's free to read for everybody. So anybody who's interested can read it.
Yeah. And
Pankaj is being very modest. He's actually one of the most interesting writers about Bollywood out there. So you definitely want to be reading him.
Yeah. And if there's any place to be shameless, it is Khandaan Podcast. No worries there.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Sujoy, where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at 9E3K, and you can follow Khandaan Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Khandaan Podcast.
Amrita?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ.
Thank you for listening. We're Khandaan Podcast. Drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We haven't had a review in a while. We'll read it on the show when we do receive one. Sign up to Patreon, sign up to the newsletter, and thank you for listening.
Khandaan Podcast for the acting.